Well, thanks for joining us on the program, everyone. What a day to be alive, right? Brand new day and brand new week. Thank you, everyone, for staying the course on the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. We continue our conversation on the state of the nation on the show today. Mr. President is expected back today, but to some big questions as regards to the economy and, of course, the big question in the mouth of many Nigerians as to what next for this administration. Mr. President talked about reviewing is midterm 2 years in office and how much success has been achieved in the past 2 years. Faraway France, I'm sure you're also following the criticisms that have since followed, is stay away, especially in the light of the challenges in the area of insecurity back at home in places like Plateau, in Enugu and Benue. We're asking the tough questions on the show this evening. What next? With the president's return, you're also hearing all of the criticisms coming from Bishop Kuka. The latest is coming from Pastor Tunde Bakare, who is talking about the need for leadership as against rulership in the real sense of it. Some very tough conversations ongoing in the light of what Mr. President has been able to achieve thus far, especially coming from people who know him very closely and who do not spare any extra word as we speak right now to challenge his administration and exactly what he has to offer. Well, I'm talking to spokesperson of the president on the issue of policy communication. Dr. Bwala joins me on the program this evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I was just reading your reaction to Pastor Tunde Bakare's submission, and I'm wondering if this is a new twist to accepting criticism, or there is a sense to which you agree with some of the content of his criticism this time.
Well, good evening, and thank you for having me. Good evening also to your viewers. Pastor Tunde Bakare is the statesman, an elder statesman. He once ran as the vice presidential candidate to the then General Muhammadu Buhari. He's also a pastor and someone who deeply cares about Nigeria and about the progress of Nigeria. So yesterday's sermon, and then he proceeded to deliver his speech. For anybody who has an open mind and who listened to the speech from the beginning to the end will know that it is a speech delivered by someone who deeply cares for Nigeria and cares about the future of Nigeria. And so we welcome that kind of engagement, because if you look at what he said, you would see that, like I did when I listened to him, just like when you're doing a review of a book or a lecture. And I thought that it was well delivered. I do not agree with him in some, but this is what he did. He gave a general background of the state of the country. He gave his opinion about the state of the country and the way leadership is applied in governance in Nigeria. He disagreed in some, he agreed in others. In fact, applauded some of the strides of the administration. Then he went ahead to offer suggestions that he believed as the way forward. And so when you listen to this kind of opinion and perspective from a statesman, you can but respect his right. Just because one or two things he said we do not agree with it does not mean we will turn down or throw away the baby with the bathwater. So it is received with thanks. It is received with an open heart, because even though he's a politician, but he was careful enough to not allow politics to take a greater part of what he did. Now, there are things he said that I quite disagree with, quite a number, quite many. But his right to express his opinion is what I feel that we have to respect as people of Nigeria.
Pastor Bakare specifically questioned the administration handling of the economy. I'm sure you heard him talk about the issue of security as well. Beyond appreciating his constructive intent, are there tangible adjustments that the presidency is considering? For instance, you take a look at what the Naira is compared to a dollar. It appears that it keeps depreciating irrespective of the intervention we've seen happen in the past 2 years.
So this is where you have to agree with this fact that there will be divergent views, whether with respect to the economy or with respect to the security. Because if you bring to your TV station 5 economic experts to give you their opinion about government in Nigeria, and the way the economy is applied, the principles of economy as applied in governance, I can guarantee you with almost a degree of certainty that all of them are not going to be in Artedium. All of them are not going to be towing on one direction, because economy is a theory. And so there are different theories to the application of economic principles to governance. So that's why I take that as his opinion, because there will be somebody who differs with him. And what we engender, what we promote, what we encourage is this kind of dialogue, because that is how we have been calling for citizenship engagement in the way governance affairs are managed in Nigeria, so that from the citizens, you can get what you need to get and add to what you have and then move forward. Same with security. There are different approaches to security, to dealing with security, but this is what I can tell you with respect to the economy. When we took the reforms, now we are all aware of the fact that once you begin a reform, then that means the growth, albeit, is going to be slow, and all of the things that you're putting as structures in place are long term. The ones that are in the short term, we have seen it already. For example, the increased allocation to states has taken away 27 states out of bankruptcy. And now they have enough money to administer and governance. We see that as in the immediate. But in the long term, we see certain infrastructure that are put in place and certain principles are applied that in the long term is going to benefit the people. Now, this is what I would say as the contributor to the most recent both economic and insecurity. That's the economic slowdown in terms of the cost of living and the cost of prices of items and inflation. It is global, actually. I asked a professor in economics. I explained to him the kind of progress we've made over the last 18 months. And then towards the ending of last year, we have this reduced food prices. Why is it that on recent time, things are going up? And he told me, he said, with respect, spokesman, are you blinded to the fact that the decisions that the president of the United States is taking over the last 1-2 months is affecting economy globally? And I agree with him. Because I can tell you right now, the cost of living crisis in the United Kingdom in the last 2 months has gone above the roof. The United States of America, if you have been following the news, over the last 1-2 months, situation is terrible for them. Even the billionaires in America, those who are deemed to have been stable, have developed that kind of stability economically, they're having a problem. Dow Jones keep coming down and going up because
I hear you, Mr. Bwala, but I think that the conversation here really has to, it speaks to the fundamental decisions taken on day one by Mr. President, removal of fuel subsidy and the unification of the exchange rate. So we've seen you have made reference to reduction in price, but relative to what the price was prior to this administration, that's really the bone of contention. And it's a question of whether or not these policies were well thought out. The conversation as to whether it was the right policy or not is open. Other candidates also expressed, but the challenge here is, did we do what we're supposed to do before implementing them? And that's responsible for where we are right now, and responsible for what the cost of living is for many Nigerians.
So I have listened to quite a number of people who said we should have done something before removing subsidy or before unifying the Naira. But the things that they wanted us to do, or that they say we ought to have done before these policy reforms, they could not back it up with facts considering the circumstances of ground. Because you would have done that if, one, you have enough money in the reserve, two, you have enough money on ground to cushion the effect, and three, you have infrastructure in their proper place. If President Bola Tinubu had the luxury of these three things, I can guarantee you that he may not have removed the subsidy almost instantly, or it is something he would have spread over a period of time. But we came to a point where we didn't have a choice. We have 76 trillion naira to be paid over a period of three years. We had depleting excess reserve. And then we also have oil production going down low in the midst of the cacophony. The only way, and then, of course, people who were borrowing us money left, right, and center at the time were no longer willing to give us any loan until we can demonstrate that we have reform policies that will put Nigeria in better trajectory. So we have no option but to do what economically anybody in that kind of situation will do, which is to remove subsidy and unify the naira. Now, you asked something, he said the cost of items or food prices as at the time we took and the one before we took the decision relatively. Definitely, they are not going to be the same. Because when you unify the naira and remove fuel subsidy, what happened is that there's quote unquote what looked like an inflation. If somebody used to buy fuel, what do you call that? Units fuel in the car, for example, but let's say at 70 something naira and you're buying 160, there's going to be cyclical effect in the value chain. It will affect transportation, affect cost of feeding, so it is something you don't even have to belabor it. It is a fact that by that decision, we knew there was going to be inflation. But we knew that that was the best option we could take given the circumstance. Right. But if you are asking me, have we seen results since we took the decision? I explained to you the increased revenue, which has now delivered the state away from bankruptcy. If we have time, I can go on and tell you about the interventions of government that has affected Nigerians. As at that time when we took that decision, people were hopeless and helpless. But Nigerians are able to adjust because they can see sincerity on the part of the president to do what is right.
Definitely, I hear you clearly, Mr. Bwala, and we're going to talk more about this shortly, especially as to whether or not this administration feels the pulse of majority of Nigerians. You are active online and you hear what Nigerians say and how they describe this administration, especially their experience as Nigerians, the cost of living, the standard of living, the quality of life. It sounds a bit different from the optimism you've shared, but we'll talk more about that shortly right after this break. Stay with us, everyone. Special Advisor to President Tinubu on Policy Communications, Bwala, is my guest today. Thank you for staying the course on the program. Is there a sense to which you think the Tinubu administration is in a race against time? Because when we get to 2027, it wouldn't be about the policies that we have implemented. It will be about what Nigerians have experienced thus far. And it would then matter how much they were paying for petrol before this administration came to power, and how much they're paying for petrol now, how much they're paying for certain commodities prior to 2023 elections and now. Does that bother you?
No. So here is the point. How much they were buying petrol at the time, it was a bit low, but that's because federal government was subsidizing it. In other words, federal government was paying for the difference, because the sale of the product at the time was not commensurate to what is in the international market. But federal government realized that most of these things we call subsidy were actually not money paid in the recess of the world to ameliorate the hardship of the people. But there were rackets and there are cabals in that oil industry who were direct beneficiaries of that subsidy, and it does not impact on the people. That's why we had a problem of lack of payment of salary because states went bankrupt. That's why we had infrastructure decay in Nigeria, left, right, and center. That's why we had to borrow over and over and over. And that's why we got to that point where we could no longer demonstrate that we can pay the money. So we are not able to get the borrowing. These are facts that have been accepted by economists. But we knew that when we take that decision, everybody is going to be uncomfortable. Everybody will be affected. It will definitely affect the change of the situation and cost of living of the Nigerian people. But our duty in leadership is to communicate this same thing to the people, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. However long it takes for us to encourage. But we can take solace in the fact that we are not speaking about the obscure things. We are speaking about what, as we're implementing it, we are seeing it. And the change cannot be overnight. When Barack Obama took the government, became president in 2008, at the time he became president, there was global recession. And I remember he was asked the same question you're asking me now. How long will it take before America can be out of that recession? Barack Obama said, however long it will take. And what, in fact, Americans had to do was to bail out companies in the United States of America because they could not sustain it. Economics is not rhetoric. Economics are facts that can be substantiated, assisted, or debunked by situation. I can tell you in the last 18 months, the situation of Nigeria in the last 6 months is not the same today. We experienced marked progress in security. We experienced marked progress in the economy until just most recent time. Like I told you, the issue of the economy is a global effect because of the dynamics of policies in America.
And it's
Affecting
exactly
production, affect
it is
supply.
exactly why we elected a president. I remember very clearly Mr. President saying, "Don't pity me. I understand the problem. That is why I ask that you vote for me." But quickly, because of our time, let us talk about insecurity. Because while Mr. President was abroad, we saw issues in Plateau, in Benue, and Enugu. Horrific attacks, no doubt. Does this security lapse in the country? This lapse in our security architecture send a strong message, especially happening at the time when the commander-in-chief was away?
No, it has nothing to do with the president's presence or absence, because even if the president were to be present in Nigeria, the president will not go to the bush with gun in his hands. What will make for the dealing with insecurity is the commander-in-chief taking charge of affairs of government, which he has been doing, communicating with security chiefs, communicating with critical stakeholders in this fight against insecurity. Not just the security chief, local chiefs, local government, governors, like what he told the governor of Plateau State recently. He said, "I have told you before now, and I make suggestion on how you can go to the root cause of this problem and then deal with that situation." This is a conversation he had with the governor long before now. But people don't know that the president has been engaging with governors, whether in the area of economy or whether in the area of the security. Now, insecurity is a crime. Crisis economy has now become an economy in the world. In those days, people commit crime because of the tendency to commit crime. Now people commit crime because they feel they can make money by committing crime. So they create a problem to be paid. They create a problem to increase the problem, and they create the problem to be paid so they can stop the problem. It has become a crisis economy. It has nothing to do with ethnicity, religion, or tribe. And that's the way government is looking at it, that crime is a crime and we have to come together. But the factors that will help in dealing with insecurity is a government issue, because it says the security of life and the welfare of the people is the responsibility of government. Government consists of federal, state, and local government. It is engagement. The president worked towards the achievement of local government autonomy so that resources can be at the local government level to deal with the root cause of insecurity at the local government, by ensuring that people have local vigilantes, by ensuring that people have economic activities there, so they don't have to be tempted to be involved in the crisis economy. At the state level, we have seen the increased revenue. It's a one way of fighting both economy and fighting insecurity. And aside from that, every time the governors call upon the president for one need or the other, the president has never hesitated in releasing funds to assist the state governors in dealing with that. But you will create a better time when we'll talk in extensio what it means for us to fight insecurity.
All right.
Because when you look at security votes that go to governors, and you look at the lack or supply or the lack thereof or equipment in the state to deal with insecurity by providing surveillance gadgets, by providing vehicles, by even mobilizing the federal agents in their state, then you will be able to comprehensively deal with insecurity. But I can tell you for sure that government is on its toe. Every person in government is working day and night to ensure that our people feel safe, secure, and go about their normal business.
And beyond these commitments, are the question of sustainable solutions. One of the strategies that was well articulated prior to the general election in 2023 was state police. We're hearing that there's another NEC meeting this Thursday, for instance, and close sources are saying that state police isn't on the agenda, despite 36 states submitting reports in that regard. Who exactly is blocking this critical security solution? Or has it changed from being a solution for this administration?
So there are two sides to this argument around state police. There are people who still believe within the present framework of the security architecture of the state that we can deal with insecurity if we understand what it takes to do that. What does it take to do that? In the state, for example, there is SSS, there is police, there is military, and there is paramilitary in every state. Then every state has the right to also create a quasi-paramilitary outfit and get the support of government to deal with local issues. Let's take, for example, my brother, If a governor who gets more than 2 to 3 billion as security vote decide to take only 1 billion to buy equipment in terms of drone system, vehicle, and everything that is needed to do surveillance and fight insecurity, then secondly, if that same governor can give adequate infrastructure to help federal agents in their state, take for example, a governor takes money and because what we are finding, very sadly, my brother, is that there are some states, the governors give 20 million to SSS, 20 million to the police, 20 million to the army as monthly allocation for fighting insecurity. Where are we going? And when you hear security vote is about 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, we'll create time and talk about it. Because you see, crime that now infiltrates the societies in Nigeria are so dynamic that we're even hearing that the criminal elements even use drones. How can undemocratic elements use sophisticated system of surveillance and the state does not have it? You go to some state and ask for and look at the police vehicle, you will know that there will be insecurity. Go to some state and see whether they even have community vanguard policing system. No local vigilante at all. So dealing with insecurity, by the time you create a state police now, a governor who said he's struggling to pay salary, you want to create another police system for him to pay them or to work with them free of charge. And you know what it means for a state to run security outfit like a police system? It is not joke. Do we have budget at the moment to sustain that? Now, I'm not suggesting that we don't need it, but what I'm saying is we don't have to wait for it before we can safeguard the life and the property of our people. But within the framework of what we have now, if the governors can deploy this security vote in its proper context, take for example, you go to every local government and create local government vigilante. Go to ward. Just the same way in politics, we have the polling unit, the ward, the local government. If you create that kind of system of vigilance and vanguard, some of the people will be there to provide intelligence. Some will be there to make sure that they serve as the front line in dealing with these insurgents. Believe me, my brother, will achieve substantially. But we have always heard this lame excuse where governors will say, I don't have the capacity to do anything because I'm not the chief executive officer of my state. All the governor has every right to direct the director of SSS, the commissioner of police, and the military component in his state to deal with insecurity. So that's why some people feel that governors are asking for that so they can use this police system for political reasons. But if it is that we want to fight insecurity, I am suggesting to you that right now we have within us and around us the capacity to do something that will suggest to people that we're serious about fighting against insecurity.
I hear you.
It's not just the work of federal government.
I hear you. I think it was February last year when the Minister of Information said that state police was in its infancy. It's over a year now, and we haven't heard much about it. I believe you agree with me that perhaps we need to hear some categorical statements from this administration as to the direction in that regard and what decision has been made. But we have to leave it there. Dr. Bwala, we'll continue this conversation subsequently. Hopefully you find time to join us again. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Anytime. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Bwala is Special Advisor to President Tinubu on Policy Communication. That's our show today, everyone. You can watch it again at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow.